Chapter 24 of Babbitt. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mike Venditti. MikeVenditti.com. Babbitt by Sinclair Lewis. Chapter 24. 1. His visit to Paul was as unreal as his night of fog and questioning. Unseeing, he went through prison corridors, stinking of carbolic acid, to a room lined with pale yellow settees pierced in rosettes, like the shoe-store benches he had known as a boy. The guard led Paul in. Above his uniform of linty gray, Paul's face was pale and without expression. He moved timorously in response to the guard's commands. He meekly pushed Babbitt's gifts of tobacco and magazines across the table to the guard for examination. He had nothing to say but, "Oh, I'm getting used to it. And I'm working in the tailor shop. Stuff hurts my fingers." Babbitt knew that in this place of death Paul was already dead. And as he pondered on the train home, something in his own self seemed to have died, a loyal and vigorous faith in the goodness of the world, a fear of public disfavor, a pride in success. He was glad that his wife was away. He admitted without justifying it. He did not care. 2. Her card read, Mrs. Daniel Judique. Babbitt knew of her as the widow of a wholesale paper dealer. She must have been 40 or 42, but he thought her younger when he saw her in the office that afternoon. She had come to inquire about renting an apartment, and he took her away from the unskilled girl accountant. He was nervously attracted by her smartness. She was a slender woman in a black Swiss frock, dotted with white, a cool-looking, graceful flock. A broad black hat shaded her face. Her eyes were lustrous, her soft chin of an agreeable plumpness, and her cheeks an even rose. Babbitt wondered afterward if she was made up, but no man living knew less of such arts. She sat revolving her violet parasol. Her voice was appealing without being coy. "I wonder if you can help me." "Be delighted." "I've looked everywhere, and I want a little flat, just a bedroom, or perhaps two, and sitting room and kitchenette and bath. But I want one that really has some charm to it. Not these dingy places, or these new ones with terrible gaudy chandeliers. And I can't pay so dreadfully much. My name is Tanis Judique." "I think maybe I've got just the thing for you. Would you like to chase around and look at it now?" "Yes, I have a couple of hours." In the new Cavendish Apartments, Babbitt had a flat which he had been holding for Sidney Finkelstein, but at the thought of driving beside this agreeable woman he threw over his friend Finkelstein, and, with a note of gallantry, proclaimed, "I'll let you see what I can do." He dusted the seat of the car for her, and twice he risked death in showing off his driving. "You do know how to handle a car," she said. He liked her voice. There was, he thought, music in it, and a hint of culture, not a bouncing giggle like Louetta Swanson's. He boasted, "You know, there's a lot of these fellows that are so scared and drive so slow that they get in everybody's way. The safest driver is a fellow that knows how to handle his machine, and yet isn't scared to speed up when it's necessary. Don't you think so?" "Oh, yes." "I bet you drive like a whiz." "Oh, no. Not really. Of course we had a car, before my husband passed on, and I used to make believe drive it, but I don't think any woman ever learns to drive like a man." "Well, now, there's some mighty good women drivers." "Of course, these women that try to imitate men, and play golf and everything, and ruin their complexions and spoil their hands."
"That's so. I never did like these mannish females."
Of course I admire them dreadfully, and I feel so weak and useless beside them."
"Oh, rats now. I bet you play the piano like a whiz."
"Oh, no, not really."
"Well, I'll bet you do."
He glanced at her smooth hands, her diamond and ruby rings. She caught the glance, snuggled her hands together with a kittenish curving of slim white fingers which delighted him, and yearned. "I do love to play. I like to drum on the piano, but I haven't had any real training, Mr. Judique. Used to say I would have been a good pianist if I'd had any training, but then I guess he was just flattering me."
I'll bet he wasn't. I bet you've got temperament.
"Oh, do you like music, Mr. Babbitt?"
You bet I do, only I don't know as I care so much for all this classical stuff.
"Oh, I do. I just love Chopin and all those."
Do you, honest? Well, of course, I go to lots of these highbrow concerts, but I do like a good jazz orchestra right up on its toes, with the fellows that plays the bass fiddle spinning around and beating it up with the bow.
"Well, I know. I do love good dance music. I love to dance. Don't you, Mr. Babbitt?"
Sure, you bet. Not that I'm very darn good at it, though.
"Oh, I'm sure you are. You ought to let me teach you. I can teach anybody to dance."
Would you give me a lesson sometime?
"Indeed I would."
Better be careful, or I'll be taking you up on that proposition. I'll be coming up to your flat and making you give me that lesson.
"Yes." She was not offended, but she was non-committal. He warned himself,
Have some sense now, you chump. Don't go making a fool of yourself again.
and with loftiness he discoursed.
Oh, I wish I could dance like some of those young fellows, but I'll tell you, I feel it's a man's place to take a full, you might say, creative share of the world's work, and mold conditions, and have something to show for his life. Don't you think so?
"Oh, I do."
And so I have to sacrifice some of the things I might like to tackle, though I do, by golly, play about a good game of golf as the next fellow.
"Oh, I'm sure you do. Are you married?"
Yeah. And, of course, official duties, I'm the vice president of the Boosters Club, and I'm running one of the committees of the State Association of Real Estate Boards, and that makes a lot of work and responsibility, and practically no gratitude for it.
"Oh, I know. Public men never do get proper credit."
They looked at each other with a high degree of mutual respect, and at the Cavendish Apartments he helped her out in a courtly manner, waved his hand at the house as though he were presenting it to her, and ponderously ordered the elevator boy to hustle and get the keys. She stood close to him in the elevator, and he was stirred but cautious. It was a pretty flat of white woodwork and soft blue walls. Mrs. Judique gushed with pleasure as she agreed to take it, and as they walked down the hall to the elevator she touched his sleeve, caroling,
"Oh, I'm so glad I went to you. It's such a privilege to meet a man who really understands. Oh, the flats some people have showed me."
He had a sharp instinctive belief that he could put his arm around her, but he rebuked himself, and with excessive politeness he saw her to the car, drove her home. All the way back to his office he raged, "Glad I had some sense for once. Curse it, I wish I'd tried. She's a darling. Corker, regular charmer. Lovely eyes and darling lips and that trim waist. Never gets sloppy, like some women. No, no, no. She's a real cultured lady. One of the brightest little women I've met these many moons. Understands about the public topics, and, but darn it, why didn't I try? Tanis." 3. He was harassed and puzzled by it, but he found that he was turning toward youth, as youth. The girl who especially disturbed him, though he had never spoken to her, was the last manicure girl on the right in the Pompeian barber shop. She was small, swift, black-haired, smiling. She was 19, perhaps, or 20. She wore thin salmon-colored blouses which exhibited her shoulders and her black ribbon camisoles. He went to the Pompeian for his fortnightly hair trim. As always, he felt disloyal at deserting his neighbor, the Reeves Building barber shop. Then, for the first time, he overthrew his sense of guilt. Doggone it, I don't have to go here if I don't want to. I don't own the Reeves Building. These barbers got nothing on me. I'll doggone well get my hair cut where I doggone well want to. Don't want to hear anything more about it. I'm through standing by people unless I want to. Doesn't get you anywhere, and I'm through. The Pompeian barber shop was in the basement of the Hotel Thornleigh, largest and most dynamically modern hotel in Zenith. Curving marble steps with a rail of polished brass led from the hotel lobby down to the barber shop. The interior was of black and white